So
she is good. She's good. She's as good as she has been
okay.
for a little bit. She's off all medication now.
Okay.
I continue after speaking with Maddie. I'm continuing her like current food, the Royal Canine, for like 2 weeks just to give her stability.
Right.
But she gave me some really good options to check out for food, and also the vet, the holistic vet that I'm bringing her in to see next week. And so we've got a plan.
Good.
Potty training is, again, I don't want to jinx it. I feel like every time I say she's good, she reverts back. But yeah, so far we've not had any accidents. And it seems like she's able to hold longer too. I think you said 1 hour for every month of age, right? So, well, technically she's supposed to be able to hold for 4 hours now. So yeah, we're dragging that time out.
Okay.
So it's good. And so actually I don't really have a ton of questions. The only one question is when and how do when do I give her more freedom around the apartment? Because I remember there was one, was it 2 weeks back where you said like I'm giving her too much freedom too soon?
Yeah.
Like, so what's an indication, or like how much time are we looking at?
It's all about consistency. So like, you said you had a good week this week.
Right.
You don't want to jinx it, right? And for new puppy owners, they get comfortable too fast.
Right.
And like it's only been a week. And I would want like, a couple of months of no mistakes. Like that's consistency. That's a period of time.
Okay.
Where it's like, okay. And then the thing is, when you begin to give more space, guess what I expect?
Accidents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because now you're changing things.
Right.
Okay, so it's just part of the process. Yep. But since you've had months, or at least a couple of months of consistent, like she can hold it for 4 hours, and she's not, having any potty mistakes outside of maybe like if she's ill or something like that.
Right.
Then I go, okay, great. Now we can expand. But now that she's like, hey, what's this new territory? I've never been here before. She might designate it as a bathroom. And, it happens, but we just, go back to the basics where, right. I watch for those signs. If she looks suspicious, I put her in the kennel, wait for potty time, take her back out again. Okay. So, and you could go 3 months with no potty mistakes and then have a week where she's really bad.
Right.
Like it happens.
Yeah.
I just go with the flow,
Okay. But we'll at least want to have consistency for a couple of months.
Yes. It's all about consistency. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So, that's like, with like, I guess barking in the kennel. Some dogs need a bark collar where if they bark, it'll correct them. And, the owner will leave it on for a couple of days, and then the dog stops barking, and then they take it off right away. No. I'm like, you need months of the dog not barking when you're gone before you can then test if the dog will not bark even without it, Right. And in some cases they do, some cases they don't. So, but yeah, I'd give it a couple of months, because she's 4 months now.
Yeah. And couple months, talking like 2-3 months? Or are we talking like 5-6 months?
Oh, in terms of age?
No, like consistency.
A couple of months. Like around the time when she's 6 months, because around 6 months, in my experience, is when puppies are capable of holding it as long as an adult dog.
Okay.
Okay. But it all depends if the owner was consistent, with the potty schedule and all that stuff. But that's when the body starts to mature. And, you know, like my puppies at that age we're going out 3 times a day, which is like the norm. In the morning, after work, before dinner, or before bed.
And so I was going to ask you too, because today I am bringing her out a ton in that, because I kennel her, right? So every time I bring her out of the kennel, I have to bring her to potty first so in the morning, let me count how many times I bring her out. In the morning when she wakes up, I bring her out immediately just for potty.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring her up for breakfast. And then after breakfast, she goes out of potty. And then this is a regular work week, right? And then I kennel her. I bring her out at least 6-7 times a day. Does that sound right? Because before lunch, so I kennel her from like 8 to 12, right? But before I bring her out for lunch, I bring her down for potty, bring her up, feed her lunch, and then bring her to potty again. And then she goes back into the kennel from like 1 to 5. So at 5, I bring her out, potty. She comes back up. So that's what? And then I have to bring her out one more time before dinner. And then after dinner, another time. So that's 8 times a day.
So what I would do is, because you said you feed her lunch, right?
Yeah.
Is at 1 o'clock. How long is that break with Pretzel at 1 o'clock?
Usually, I mean, the longest she would be in her crate at one go is 4 hours.
Right, but like when you at the lunch break, you know, if you take Pretzel out at 1 o'clock for potty and all that stuff.
Yep.
How long is she out of the kennel for?
So I take her out. I take her out at 1, potty, come back up, feed her lunch. She stays in there for like 15-20 minutes.
Okay.
And then I bring her to potty again. And then she's out until maybe about 2.
Okay, so she gets like an hour break essentially. Minus like the 15 minutes that she stays in there.
Correct.
Okay, so what you could do is at 1 o'clock, feed her. I don't take her out to potty. Feed her.
Okay.
Wait to, you know, the 15 whatever minutes.
Got it.
Then take her out. She goes to the bathroom. You give her 30-minute break, and then you just put her back in the kennel.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
So like I cut the potty before.
Yeah, and you're feeding first,
right.
And then you're putting that because you said you would feed her, you would wait 15 minutes where she'd be in the kennel, then you take her out, right?
Right.
Is that you're at 1 o'clock you're feeding, and then like at 1:15, 1:20 you take her out to potty.
Right.
And then she's up to be free, and now, and this is if you want to, like, what you're saying technically is not is correct. That's what you're doing is correct. But if you want to start pressing Pretzel to learn how to hold her potty, you utilize that crate.
Right.
Right. So you feed her, you wait 15, 20 minutes, you take her out the potty, she's back inside, she has her free time, and then at 2 o'clock, I kennel her again, but no potty break. Okay. But I suspect at 5 o'clock, I might have come into a potty accident. Right? Because maybe she's used to going potty twice midday. But now what you're trying to teach her is there is no more 2 times in the midday. There's 1 time.
Right.
So then if she does have a potty mistake, you know, potty mistakes are good if they're done in the kennel.
Right.
Because that deters her from repeating the behavior. Right? So I use that to my advantage personally, especially when they're little puppies. Right. So I can get it out the way. You know, they're small, they're easy to clean up, all that stuff. Get all that out the way. So, you know, if I did that myself, I go, okay, like you're going straight from break time to the kennel for 4 hours and you're used to going twice. I expect to come back to a potty mistake. So I'm not going to be mad if I do come back to a potty mistake. Or if if she's barking or whatever, and, I have to correct her, like I know why. Okay, because that's technically on on me,
Right.
but because I want her to be able to hold it like an adult dog.
Right.
Okay. So that's why like my dog's potty trained really quick, because I was very strict in black and white with it, and it was gross, especially with my Pitty, because she was, you know, a bigger puppy. But it was a lot easier to clean her when she was 25 pounds than when she's like a 40-pound, you know, dog, whatever.
Yeah.
So you can remove that one, and then so I'm sorry, you said is it 2 times and then she goes in the kennel in the morning?
Yeah.
And so it's one when you wake up, then you feed her, and then one after you yeah. So that one you can potentially remove the second one. And is she free in the morning?
After, like, don't go potty after she eats?
If you're trying to push things more quickly,
Okay.
that's what I would do.
Okay.
Now, what you're doing is correct. Okay, with puppies, like that's typically how it works when I talk to my clients.
Right.
But you know, if I have a client that doesn't, maybe they have to go down 40 floors,
Right.
you know, and they're like, well, how can I still potty train,
Got it.
but lessen the amount of trips? Then I go, well, remove the after, you know, the after potty or whatever.
Right.
So then you would take her out, she would do her business, and then, you know, you would feed her, and then I don't know if she's loose for a bit, and then in the kennel, so no potty after. Then at 1 o'clock, but I would expect again, because I pressed her a bit more, at 1 o'clock I might come into a potty.
Right.
You know, so you're trading. It's either you do more trips downstairs, or you do more trips, or you do more like potential
Cleaning.
cleanups.
Okay.
That's the trade-off.
So when do I start transitioning, like, from, because now a lot of what we're doing is it's her puppy stage, right? Like potty training, like meals 3 times a day, and I'm even giving her meals 4 times a day now, because she's had that hunger puke. When do I start slowly transitioning her to, like, for example, 2 meals a day?
2 meals at 6 months.
Okay.
And then 1 meal at 1 year, if you want. I feed my dogs once a day.
Okay.
But at 6 months, you can drop down to 2 meals. And then some people just keep it 2 meals, which is fine.
And with 2 meals, is there a ideal, like they should be 12 hours apart?
I usually do, I mean, for puppies, you know, if it's like 7, 8 in the morning, and then like 6, 7 in the evening.
Okay.
Is usually what I recommend.
Okay.
So that this way they have enough time to digest it overnight, and then when they poop in the morning, they should be pretty, you know, good.
Right. But if I were to drop the second potty break in the morning, am I also dropping then the potty break before I feed her lunch?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because remember, I was like, at 1, you would feed her. So instead of letting her out at potty at 1, you just open the kennel, put the food in, and close it. Let her eat, you know, then wait 15 minutes. And then, you know, if she's been good, if she's like her body's adapting to holding everything, then she would, you know, expel everything from the breakfast, and then, you know, whatever was built up.
Okay. So that's one transition for meals. And then potty, ideally we want to get to 3 times a day, right?
That's the norm. Yeah.
Okay. And again, that transition will, like, ideally slowly transition her to 3 times potty break, what, at 6 months as well?
Yeah, it's a good age. Yeah. So then you would just take out that 1 o'clock outing.
Right.
And then, because at 6 months, she wouldn't be getting lunch anymore.
Right.
Because you'd be doing 2 meals. So it'd be the breakfast and then the dinner. So then at 1 o'clock, there wouldn't be the outing or the breakfast. So, I mean, or dinner, lunch.
Right. And so if I were to still continue kenneling her when I am at work at 6 months, am I also looking at keeping her in her kennel, like for the whole duration that I'm at work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you want a dog walker, that's personal preference. But if you're trying to get her to just, so like, let's say you want to advance past the kennel and have Pretzel be free when you're at work. Okay. Is that six? So for me, the first year that a owner gets a dog or a puppy.
Yeah.
So if you get your puppy at 6 months, then at a year and 6 months is when I start to experiment with giving them freedom. Okay. Now you got Pretzel at 2 months, right? So that at a year and 2 months is when I would start experimenting with Pretzel being free, right?
Oh, wow. So a year.
Yeah, because you need consistency, right? And so like at 6 months, when you remove that midday break, okay, because I don't care how you end up doing this with Pretzel. It's just I want you to be aware of how it works.
Yeah.
Okay, is if you remove the midday outing at 1 o'clock at 6 months, again, I expect mistakes. Okay.
Right.
But then that's how Pretzel learns. So then she learns how to hold it from 9 to 5.
Right.
And you're doing that until she's, a year and 2 months. So at a year and 2 months, her body has adapted to, I don't use the bathroom from 9 to 5. Okay. So then when you start to experiment with freedom, you take her out in the morning, she does her business, whatever, and then you leave her alone for the day and you come back. Now you don't need anybody midday.
Right.
Okay. Now I've had clients have someone come midday, and then they'll continue to have someone come in midday even when their dog is free, because that's the schedule the dog is on. So technically their dogs go out 4 times a day, right? But they only handle 3 of those outings. Okay. So there's no right or wrong. It's just I would just tell them, like, that's perfectly fine. But if you decide one day, hey, we don't want the dog walker anymore, well, then you got to go back to the kennel.
Right.
Because the dog's used to going midday.
Right.
Okay. So then you create that habit, and now you have to create a new habit. Okay.
And so from a health perspective, you know how humans, it's not good to hold your pee.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an impact to a dog, regardless of what schedule they're on? Like they shouldn't
I've not seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I mean, maybe there is. I would be ignorant of it. But, my dogs for a long time are only going out 2 times a day.
Okay.
Because I worked, 12 hours a day. So I would take them out in the morning, be gone, and my dogs would be free.
Right.
And I would come back, and the first thing I do is let them out to go potty, and it'd be a 12-hour, gap, and they were fine.
Right.
Okay. But as they get older, and now they're like 9, I think about 9 years old now. When they become seniors, I'm expecting like they're gonna need to go out more often.
Sure.
Because they're not young anymore.
Right.
But I've never seen anything, at least with my dogs or my clients' dogs, in regards to like not going potty more frequently, leading to health issues.
Right. Okay. Okay. So meals, potty breaks. Anything else? Like I should start thinking about, like transitioning when she's going from puppy to an adult. And when do you lose the term puppy? Like when do they officially become an adult? 1-year-old, regardless of age, breed, weight?
I just say a year. Like some people say, like, oh, like large breed dogs are an adult at 10 months, and like small dogs are an adult at a year and 2 months. I'm like, just a year.
Okay.
Just make it easy, just a year.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So at a year is when I, drop down to 1 feeding personally.
Right.
A lot of people keep it at 2. Again, I don't care. It's not right or wrong. It's just my preference is I like to feed once, in the evening. Then my dogs poop in the morning, and they're pretty much set to the next meal. So dogs will typically poop. The number of feedings plus 1 is a variable. Okay.
Right.
So like I feed my guys once, so that I expect 1 to 2 poops a day.
Right.
When dogs eat 3 times, I would expect 3 to 4 poops a day. Okay. But like when a client tells me my dog poops 6 times a day and I only feed them 3 times a day, I know they're overfeeding for sure.
Right.
It's too much.
Okay. That's a good ballpark figure to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's in line with that. So I feed her 4 times a day, which is a pain in the ass. But that's the number of poops she has to. So you've met her now. Anything you observe, notice?
Yeah, she's definitely a nervous puppy.
Okay.
For sure. It is what it is. People can spend thousands of dollars on a well-bred puppy, and it can be a nervous dog too. It's just like people.
Right.
What I care about is how does she handle that stress.
And what are you noticing? To make you say that she's the nervous puppy.
When she triggers to like when she was here, so she's been here what, 2 times, 3 times? 2 times, yeah. The first day was really bad with her barking, but which we would expect, right? Which is why it's actually good to get her away from you, because it's like with kids. I remember the first day of school, ever, when I got dropped off, I cried.
Yeah.
I want to leave because you're so used to always being with your mom, right? Or your parents or somebody. It's the same thing for dogs. Now, but there's like a spectrum. And I've dealt with so many puppies that I have a good idea what the spectrum is like. And she was definitely more towards the like high stress. What the hell is going on? I need to get out of here. Anxious, but anxious more so because of the unknown.
You, right.
Yeah.
And was she in the kennel, or was she in a playpen area?
She had both. So we alternate. So they don't have, so for the puppy head start, because we're helping you potty train as well.
Yeah.
So if we leave her free all day, she's going to pee whenever.
Yeah.
And then it goes against potty training for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So she would alternate between resting in the kennel,
okay,
and being free and playing or doing her training or whatever. So then I remember when she first got dropped off, we started with her in the pen first, or not, I'm sorry, in the kennel first, and she was barking a storm. Okay. So it's fine.
And for a really long time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It got better.
Sure.
But again, this is like, so some puppies will bark. Okay. Sure. And they usually bark because they just want to be out and they want to play.
Right.
Where she was barking because she was stressed.
Right.
That's why her barking was more frequent.
Right.
Okay. Because the other dogs are like, bark, bark, I want to play. And then they're observing. They're like, and then they try to pull out the kennel and they're like, I want to play, bark, bark, right? Whereas she was just like, get me the hell out of here. Okay. Because it's a complete unknown.
Right.
But that's why I think I messaged you. It was me that had messaged you, and I said, she started out pretty stressed. She was barking. But once she played and once she had her training session, she'd calmed down a bit.
Right.
Okay. Because then she had like activity, and she was like she started to like, oh, okay, there's other stuff that happens here.
Right.
So that's why, like with our older dogs, we don't require it for the puppies because they're puppies. We do 3 days to acclimate them to the facility. Most places just take the dog and throw them in the room with 30 dogs.
Right.
And it can be too much stress, and it can cause issues. So we do the 3 days because we understand that the first day the dog is completely out of their element.
Right.
So they actually don't play the first day. We walk them, the handlers will walk them around the facility, take them out the potty, take them for a walk and stuff. If they're social enough, they'll go on the walks with the other dogs, but that's it. They don't interact other than that. Then the second day, we start to bring them around the other dogs walking around them, walking by their kennel, to get them used to that. Because some dogs will become aggressive or become defensive with that. So that tells us, how comfortable the dog is. We'll try a little bit of approaching with the dogs. We'll sniff each other in the rear, see how they feel about it. And then on the third day is when we pair them one-on-one with dogs, okay? And then after that, we say, your dog did well enough, they can keep coming back. Or we'll say, your dog didn't do too good, nothing bad, but they're gonna take longer before they can actually acclimate to play. With puppies, it's pretty straightforward because most puppies, even if they've not been socialized, if we keep them in there long enough, at some point they get curious, because they're so young. They haven't built a habit for a long period of time quite yet.
Right.
So once she got to play, I think it was Zoe, I think maybe Walter was here that day. There was about 3 other puppies when she came. They were all bigger puppies. She was a small little one.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
I want her to play with bigger dogs too.
And she did well with them, but she was in the beginning, like kind of moving away from them. She didn't know what to do, and we just kept her in there. And eventually, like you saw her,
Yeah.
and she would get a little defensive. I don't know if you saw in one of the videos, like she went like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she continues to do that with some, because she's been, now like I bring her to the park, she's been socializing with other puppies. And like with some puppies, I'm noticing, I think, I don't know if it's a chemistry thing or not, but with some puppies, like she would growl more than others.
Mm-hmm.
Like some show, her approach is always the same. She'll be curious, she wants to approach them, but if the other puppy approaches, like she will start backing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will take her maybe a good 5 minutes at minimum to be like comfortable to approach.
Mm-hmm.
But she'll never back away, like she'll run away and that she will not want to socialize. But with some puppies, like she would growl.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, she's the one who squeals when another puppy, I am assuming, nips at her.
When the puppy nips at her?
Yeah, I think so.
In play?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, like that backing away, that's the nervousness.
Okay.
Because I'm sure you've seen other puppies, as soon as they come in, they just like put themselves.
Yeah.
And they're like, just like, hey, right?
Yeah.
That's like the standard puppy.
Okay.
Okay. So like when the puppy approaches Pretzel and she backs up, that's nervousness.
Okay.
Okay. It's not so much a fear response. Fear would be a direct runaway.
Right.
Okay. And a consistent runaway, and they stay in the corners. They want nothing to do with what's going on.
Right.
For her, she's just trying to like get a feel of the situation.
Right.
It's normal.
Okay.
What I care about is as she matures, does it develop into anything, worse?
Right.
Which is like maybe she starts to become more like that biting that you see. Like if she starts to, resort to that more quickly or more frequently. Okay, or she just starts snapping at dogs, so then she's just saying keep away. And then that's more problematic because if she does that to the wrong dog, she can trigger something.
Right.
It's not so much that she's aggressive. It's that her nervousness is putting her on the defensive. And when a dog is uncomfortable, we have 4 responses. We have fight, flight, avoidance, submission.
Right.
As she's using that fight response to keep dogs at bay so that she can have her personal space. Okay. But you're socializing her young enough that hopefully I don't want to say she gets over that, but she learns how to recover from it.
And is that so? From what I'm hearing, that is her. That is going to be her. That is going to be her nature, personality, whatnot. That will not change, and will probably not be able to correct that.
Right.
It's
What you can do now is by exposing her. So this is why trainers and veterinarians we're on opposing sides. Because veterinarians say don't expose your puppy because of diseases.
right.
And dog trainers say you need to expose your puppy because of these things.
Right.
Right. So like let's say she was a nervous puppy, but you've been exposing her since she was 2 months. She would have a higher chance she would have developed the skills to handle that nervousness much more appropriately because you started at such a young age.
Right.
Okay. And it's not always a guarantee. Like I get people that do things by the book and the dog still ends up screwed up. It just happens. Okay.
Right.
But that's why like with these Zooms and stuff, everybody's like sit, stay down, all that stuff. And I go, no. You can always teach that. You can always teach it. But the behavioral stuff, you have only a window to start working on things so that we can ideally prevent things in the future. Okay, prevention is always the easiest. So, her being here and we can observe, I'm trying to think, I know we've had a couple of puppies, right? I brought it up to the owner, I'm like, look, I'm seeing this from your puppy, we'll keep an eye on it. If we can correct it here, if we start to see it becoming an issue, because most places don't correct puppies.
Right.
They just let them whatever, and then if it gets too bad, they just pull the puppy out and put him away. But that doesn't teach the puppy anything.
Right.
Okay. So like if Pretzel gets out of line and another puppy bites her to correct her, like that's actually good for Pretzel, even if she yips and cries. But then I ignore her. Like other people will pick up their puppy and cradle them, and that reinforces the behavior. Okay. I let them handle it. And if they try to run away, I take them and plop them right back in the middle of the group. Yeah. And there's actually a video of that on my YouTube channel. It's I think a golden retriever. Mm-hmm. It's in the it's a playlist that's called Mothers Correcting Puppies.
Yeah.
Did you see that playlist?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one where the mom takes her puppy and keeps poking at it and like putting it in the middle, and you see all the puppies around, right? Because the puppy kept hiding in the corner.
Right.
And she was going, no, you're gonna be over here. And the puppy's yipping and rolling and crying, and she's just poking at him and prodding at him. And she walks away and he tries to get away. She picks him up, puts him right back, and he's crying. And then finally he submits and goes, okay. And then she leaves him alone. Because the puppy's going, I don't want to do this. This makes me uncomfortable. And the mama's going, too bad, you have to learn how to deal with it.
Right.
And she kept doing it. And so eventually the puppy just submitted to the idea. And then she leaves the puppy alone, and that resolves the tension. And the puppy goes, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. But people feel bad.
Yeah. So with Pretzel, because I brought her in twice last week, and my original intention was to bring her in twice a week. With how you've seen her, do you recommend me bringing her in more often, or for like consecutive days?
I think twice a week is good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, but in the second day it was much better.
Okay.
Like she was still being a little bratty with the barking and stuff, but nothing like the first day. And then I mean, I think spacing them out is nice, like a Monday, Thursday, or like a Tuesday, Friday, or something like that. So it's kind of like some kind of rhythm to it, But yeah, that's all personal preference. Okay. Definitely, I shouldn't say definitely, because there's always the possibility it doesn't, but like obviously more frequent visits builds comfort faster.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about her comfort, like it'll happen sooner or later. it's really like if you needed her to come more frequently, then we'll say, sure, bring her on in.
Right.
But if it's like, you're doing this to get her used to being away from you, which is very good, because imagine like if you didn't do this, right? And then you fast forward and like you need to travel and you can't take Pretzel and you have to board her somewhere. One, like let's say you board her with a friend, they would have that same problem that we had. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
By you doing this now, you're getting, and I tell people to do this with their puppies. I'm like, get your puppy somewhere out away from you.
Wait, yeah.
Yeah, so that when you leave, they're not completely under stress.
Right.
We had a dog here that was one fear aggressive with people and only trusted his owner. One person, that was it. The guy never traveled or whatever. The dog was like, I think like 3 to 4 years old. And he was like, and then he ended up getting married. So when he went to go get married, he needed to leave his dog somewhere.
Right.
So he took the dog. And his wife never met the dog either, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know how that's going to work out. But
No, what she was into.
and it's funny because his wife was afraid of dogs and his dog was afraid of humans.
Oh boy.
So I was like, good luck on getting that to work. But we had the dog for about 5-6 days. And for 3 days straight, he didn't pee, poop, eat, or drink.
Wow.
Like I took him out. I'm the one that I was the only person who could take care of him. I took him out. I can't make him use the bathroom. I'd be out there with 30 minutes. Nothing. And then finally, after 3 days, I came into the room. He had peed and pooped all in the kennel. And then he drank half his pail of water and ate like half his food. Right? Because it's against instinct to starve. But because he was, he knew I can't ingest anything because I'm in shutdown mode. Right? But then once he got all that out, he also knew like, well, I have to take something in because I'll die.
Right.
And then for like the next 2 days, he didn't do anything. He didn't pee, poop, eat, or drink anymore until the owner came back.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, that's an extreme case, but that's what happens.
Right.
So it's good that you are exposing her, bringing her out of the element. Plus she gets to play with puppies and all that stuff here. But she'll get better gradually. So if you wanted to bring her more frequently, completely up to you, personal preference. Otherwise, I think twice a week is fine.
Okay. And like in general, she is playing well.
Yeah, no, she was good.
Okay.
When she played with Carlota, which was the bigger puppy.
Beagle?
Yeah. Yeah, she's some kind of beagle mix, I think.
Right.
They played really well, but they were like about the same size.
Yeah.
And then when she was playing with the bigger puppies, she was more in the defensive. And that makes sense, right? With like her approach and stuff. But otherwise, like, she was, kind of opening up, getting curious, walking around and stuff like that once she got used to it. And then she would take a break to rest. And I can't remember if it was the first day or the second day. It was towards the end of the day and she was in the kennel. She was passed out. She was tired. So,
good.
Yeah. So she, it's just the stress in the beginning of being away from you and completely out the element and stuff like that just threw her off. But then she was acclimating. She acclimated well. Like, we've had puppies could be here for, like 2 weeks and still be like stressed because they're just naturally an anxious,
right,
nervous puppy. And it takes them longer. So, but she recovered quickly.
Okay. Yeah, and I've been leaving her in her kennel without me being in the apartment for periods of time too.
Good.
So like a couple of hours, because I need to get my social life back too before the winter hits. But so I don't know. I actually don't know how she does when she is all alone.
Have you asked her names?
No, I have not. I have not seen many people, actually. Yeah, but I don't come back to her barking. And even sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
And even when I come home, like she can clearly hear the door opening and footsteps. It does take her a while before she like whines or barks. Yeah, like she doesn't bark immediately when she hears something.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's good.
One thing I would suggest is like, let's say you come home from being out, is don't immediately go to like take her out the potty.
Okay.
Get ready, settle in.
Right.
Put stuff away. Maybe sit down for a few minutes, then go take her out.
Right.
Because you can, if like, let's say like, for instance, a real common thing is like with my with the owners is like 7 o'clock, their alarm goes off. They get up, run to the puppy, and run the puppy out. And then one day they decide they want to sleep in. The alarm goes off. Then a minute goes by. The puppy starts barking. You're late.
Yeah.
Right? And the owner's like, I want to sleep in.
Yeah.
Is I will, sometimes let the alarm go off, shut it off, wait 10 minutes, then go take the puppy out.
Yeah. I no longer, so I used to set alarms and I was following it, but I no longer am. So like even my morning schedule, it's actually been flexible between 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning. Like I no longer get up at the same time. And she doesn't bark regardless of what time. I mean, okay, today was probably the latest. And she started barking because yesterday's schedule was a bit off. But she adapted really well, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, that word adapt is very important.
Right.
Like I didn't like when my dogs had to be home for 12 hours, but they adapted to it, without having to go potty and stuff. So, because sometimes like maybe you wake up and you're really sick, right? And you end up sleeping until like 11 or 12. And it's nice to know that your dog will sleep in till 11 or 12. And then you can get up and take them out to go potty and stuff.
I never knew that was possible.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like my dogs, like, I could take them out like at 8 o'clock and go to sleep early, and maybe because I'm sick or something, and take them out at 1 o'clock the next day for the first potty break. Like they just literally just sleep there the entire time until I get up, and even if I get up, I can get up and use the bathroom and go back to bed again.
Right.
Until I get the leashes and stuff ready, they're like, nah, we're good. So, it's nice to have that flexibility, just because obviously life isn't going to be so routine. So,
okay.
Anything else?
I know I said I didn't have a lot of questions, but clearly I do. So like the last time she went in, the second time she went in, I think your trainer started to like teach her like commands, like place and come. So I've been teaching her sit and stay.
Okay.
And stay, it's the equivalent of placed, I think.
So stay, in the training world, okay? Right. Stay means whatever you're doing, don't change it.
Oh.
If you say sit, stay, it means sit and don't move until I give you permission to.
Right.
So it's not place.
Okay.
Place is go to an object, go to a bed,
Oh, okay.
and don't move. So the
Got it.
place command is very lenient. So if we send the dog to their dog bed, right, and we say place, they go to their dog bed. Place simply means go to this area, and I don't care what you do, sit, stand, lay down, play with a toy, chew on a bone. You just cannot step off of it.
Got it.
Okay. Sit is, of course, that sitting position. And down would be lay down.
Right.
Okay. Now, those three commands are stationary commands, meaning if I tell a dog to sit, I expect them to sit until I release them,
Right.
whether it be for 30 seconds or 30 minutes. Okay. Most people don't think of it that way. You know, so obedience is meant to be functional. Obedience is meant for you, you know, to tell Pretzel something, you know, when you're outside or when you're at the dog park or if you're at a restaurant with her, and she is to perform that command until she's done. So it's like her equivalent of work.
Right.
Right. So like, let's say, for example, you're going to have friends come over and you don't want Pretzel jumping all over your friends.
Yeah.
You know, and you could tell her to go to her bed, go to place. She would go to her place and she would stay there. And then your friends would come in. So then since she's here, she can't jump on your friends. You see that?
Yeah.
So it's meant to have a function.
Got it.
Most people, when they think about obedience, they think about it very simply, like as tricks, cute things the dogs do,
Yeah.
which it can be. You know, my thought process is no, if I tell a dog to lay down and not move for 2 hours when I'm at the restaurant, I want the dog to not move for 2 hours. That's me. That's how I train, you know. And I trained dog, like I had a lady who had a 3 to 4 pound Yorkie, tiny little thing. And I trained her puppy or dog for like 2 to 3 years, you know, with food. And we did a lot of cute trick stuff. You know, we never did any advanced obedience stuff because it was a little 4-pound dog who was completely friendly with people and dogs. So there was no problem there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I didn't care about how well trained that dog was because it was this big.
Okay.
But I've also trained dogs, you know, as small as Pretzel, to be like off leash reliable because that's what the owner's life needed. You know, the owner would go hiking, the owner would take their dog to the dog park and there's no fence. They don't want the dog to run away. They're very active. They take the dog to a restaurant and they don't want their dog like roaming around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, the size of the dog doesn't matter so much when it comes to the training. It comes down to what does that dog's life look like with the owner, and does the owner want that level of control?
Right.
That's why I don't worry about a lot of things right now. And the stuff that you're doing with the food, like the sit stay, like it's, you know,
So technically speaking, with the sit command, you don't need the stay command.
Correct.
Because you're meant to say sit and sit until I ask you to break.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most places teach it sit stay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine.
So whatever you teach or whatever your trainers teach her when she's with you guys, would you then also, I don't know, it's more continuity, right? Because she's gonna do it fine one time or one day with you, but the training really goes beyond that. That it's something that I have to continue doing it and reinforcing it, right?
Right. So with the puppy head start, because we've had this happen a couple of times recently, is puppy head start is really meant for potty training.
Okay.
Okay. And I designed it because we had the Bob and Jerry, the pug and the Cotton de Tulier, at 2 months. They needed someone to take care of them. But at the same time, I'm like, well, these puppies need to be potty trained. Because if they're here with us all day and they're doing normal daycare stuff, they're not going to be potty trained. So I created Puppy Head Start. And then I was like, well, we'll do real simple food stuff as like just an added part of the day.
Right.
Okay. But I think people have taken it as puppy head start is I think they're interpreting it as something that we're going to do here that will then like a transfer to the owners. Okay. And that's not how it works. So like, that's why with the puppy head start, there's no real follow-up, which you did a 10-day bundle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually you get a complimentary Zoom with that. So you have another Zoom, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I added that because of COVID.
Okay.
So like, let's say we didn't train Pretzel or do any other stuff and you brought her to puppy head start. People usually do the Zoom and then ask, it's usually potty training stuff.
Right.
So that we're on the same page. What we're doing here and what they're doing at the home is on the same page, right? Or some of them are doing great with potty training, but they might ask like, how do I correct my puppy from barking? And I talk to them about the bonker and like stuff like that, right? So it's like, we threw it in as complimentary just to help people with their puppies. But the Head Start is mainly tailored around potty training because the puppies require more outings than than our other daycare dogs, and we have to keep them on a schedule, and then maybe they have like special feeding instructions, whatever. So the puppies take more work, right? And then we threw in the food stuff because it's simple, just to get the brains thinking and stuff.
Right.
But then we have other programs, like for instance, we have what we call Daycare and Train, or Board and Train, or Puppy Board and Train, where the people pay more money, and we're training the dog here, but then we follow up with the owners to work with them with what the dog learned. Does that make sense?
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, but technically you're correct. And it's something that we do when we have the chance. Like Maddie's recorded some of the training sessions.
Okay.
I think she may have recorded one with Pretzel. And now I have a media guy because we got backed up because I did everything. I was doing all the video stuff, but now I have someone that does that for me. So then when he comes in, we'll be uploading stuff. But whenever we have the chance, like Maddie's going to be recording some of the puppy training sessions.
Okay.
So that the owners can kind of see. The only problem is then people are going to expect that we record their training sessions.
Yeah.
But we do it when we can.
Sure.
But it's real simple stuff. It's when it comes to puppies, like I think at least 3 people ask about puppy board and trains, and I was like, well, what do you want to get done? Oh, we want the puppy potty train. We want this and that. I'm like, well, it doesn't happen that fast. Right? Like we get the foundation done, but you're still gonna have a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like with puppies, people they get, it's an impression of like, if we just send them to get trained and come back, all our work is done. Like, well, no.
It doesn't happen that way. No.
No. Even with
even humans don't get trained that quickly.
Yeah. But people, it's super common. It's very common, and I have to talk. That's why when people try to board, it's easy for me to say yes and take the money. But I know when they get the dog back, they're going to be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So this is why I tell people, do a consultation so I can tell you what's realistic.
Right.
What you can achieve, and what do you want done? Okay, this is what we can get done.
Okay.
But for the puppy Head Start stuff, the way it typically works is most, like you started with sit stay, right? Yeah, most people start with sit. We don't start with sit. We start with teaching the puppy how to follow food. So like if I put the food to the nose, and you'll see like Pretzel,
right.
Like I make shapes, figure eights, circles between my legs, onto a bed, onto a chair, right? I'm getting her to use her nose.
Right.
And to follow things. And then we start to build off of that, because the first thing most people teach is the sit command. But then what happens is the puppy will sit for everything. They just assume and they sit for everything. And they lock up.
Okay.
because they're thinking, if I sit, I'll get the treat. So then they just sit there and they don't think. They don't think about like, well, if I follow my nose and lay down and sit and stand and jump on here, they don't learn options.
Okay.
So what you're doing isn't wrong. What you're doing doesn't hurt anything. But when we train the puppies here, excuse me, there's a process.
Got it. So you start with, I mean, I'm guessing I would just use the same approach, right? So now I'll, like in my free time, or like once a day, I'll start doing that with her too, like teaching her how to use her nose.
Yes.
And then you go on to sit.
Right. Well, so when we start teaching, me personally, Maddie might have her own style.
Right.
I don't use words for a few days. Okay. I teach options. I teach how to lay down, how to sit, how to stand, maybe how to roll over, how to give paw, how to jump on the chair, how to go to a bed with no words. So the puppy just goes, I get treats for all these things, right? And then once I start to see, like, if I go like this and the puppy sits really fast, then I start to say sit. Most people go sit, 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 right? Sit. And then the puppy does it and they feed them. But they've said it like 20 times.
Right.
Right? So I want the dog or the puppy to do it consistently and reliably, quickly. Then I go sit. Because then sit becomes this. Instant. Down, boom. Stand, boom. Sit, boom. Place, boom. Right? Because I've already taught the mechanics. So all of my training is usually delayed because I don't really use words. I teach the behaviors first, I shape them, and then I go, okay, this looks pretty good. I'm going to start naming that. This needs more work, so I'm going to forget about that for a little bit, keep practicing it,
Yeah.
And I think on my YouTube channel, I should have a puppy playlist. And you'll probably see, I think there's one with Bob and Jerry, and it's me working with them. And you see me working on a bunch of different, like, just behaviors or mechanical responses. And then I believe I point out, it's been a long time since I made that video, but like I point out, like, this looks really good, so I'm going to start saying this word now, and this looks good, so I'm going to say this word now. But yeah, I would, when you do a training session with her, don't focus on one thing right now. Work on a bunch of, just and experiment.
Okay.
It's okay if you mess up. It's just food.
Right.
Like, try to see if you can figure out how to get her to roll over, or see if you can get her to figure out how to give paw. Or leading her to her kennel with her food, or leading her to her dog bed. Just play around with it, have fun with it. Okay. There's videos, of course, if you want help or whatever. But I've had people who've never trained their dog for the first 2 years. Dog doesn't know anything. And then I come in and I train them, and they are just as good as any other dog that I've trained.
Right.
Because of the methods that I use, So the foundational obedience isn't necessary, because people will really stress that. And I'm like, you're going to do it, and then later on you're going to feel like it's a waste of time because it doesn't apply to the real world. There's too much distraction. But if for fun and just engagement and like enjoying the time that you have with Pretzel while she's this itty bitty, then, go for it.
And so when would you suggest starting her on more advanced training? I mean, I would love to have her go off leash. And the lifestyle you said, like, be able to bring her to a restaurant and for her to sit for like 2 hours, without sniffing, biting everything, and running around.
Mm-hmm.
6 months? Okay.
Yeah, 6 months. And then I'd suggest, have you seen any of our other videos? Like our actual training videos?
Mm, no, I don't.
Okay, because we train with
No.
remote collar.
Sorry?
We train with remote collar
Okay.
for the advanced stuff.
Okay.
Because it's the only tool that can guarantee off-leash control. Okay, food cannot guarantee that.
Right.
Any other leash cannot guarantee that, because as soon as you take off the leash or the collar, there's no control. And
Right.
with the remote collar, you know, the one that Pretzel would most likely use, it's a half-mile range. Okay, so like if there's an emergency where like something scares Pretzel and she's running away, you have the ability to get her to return.
Okay.
Okay,
How does that work?
it's a muscle contraction.
Okay.
Have you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had TENS therapy?
No.
The muscle stimulation?
No.
Okay. Well, at either of those places, it's called a TENS unit, TENS, and they put on your muscles, and they use it. They use it a lot for back pain,
Okay.
to break up muscle scar tissue, to ease muscle pain. They use it a lot in sports rehabilitation therapy, but it's a centralized or localized current that moves the muscle.
Okay.
Okay. So, but people usually think it's like you're electrocuting your dog, but that's not how it works. It's a muscle contraction. So, but you have plenty of time, and you want to think like, is it really going to be necessary for you in
Right.
Pretzel's life? For me, I don't care. My Chihuahua is 8 pounds, and he's trained on e-collar. So he's off leash trained. It's the same device that you know, if you decided to train Pretzel to an advanced degree, it's the same tool, and he's 8 pounds.
Right.
Okay. Is I suggest, you know, right now, you know, if you could take the time to like educate yourself, but most of our videos are e-collar videos,
Okay.
because that's my specialty. But I can of course train puppies and stuff, you
Right.
know. And I have a few puppies. I have there's Moose, the Bernedoodle puppy. We just started with Winnie, the Golden Retriever puppy. At 6 months, they're both at 6 months. There was Smokey, who was also a 6-month-old puppy, and he started e-collar. And then it just comes down to you know, practicing it and stuff like that. You know, you still have to do homework,
Okay.
but it gets you. It's the only tool that gets you off leash control.
Right.
Okay. So you have another Zoom, by the way, so feel free to schedule that whenever you'd like.
Yep.
Because you get that with the Head Start program.
Perfect.
And if you have any questions, let me know. Okay. And then otherwise, I guess we'll see her sometime this week.
Yeah, I think you'll probably see her tomorrow.
Okay. That sounds good. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Susie.
you. Have a
Bye.
good day. Bye.
Bye.